God damn it, Depp. You know, being in a lot of really polarizing movies lately isn't exactly making my job as an online reviewer any easier, you know. That movie night here with a review for Transcendence, the 2014 science fiction film starring Johnny Depp, Rebecca Hall, Morgan Freeman, Bettany and Cillian Murphy. The plot deals with Will Castor, a brilliant computer scientist who is leading the way in breakthroughs with self-aware artificial intelligence and computers, believing they can lead to a substantial aid and benefits for the whole of mankind. However, a Luddite terrorist group called the Rift seeks to counter the ever-growing presence of technology and launches a series of attacks on major computer firms and scientists, including the shooting of Castor himself. Dying, his wife Evelyn decides to upload his consciousness to a computer in a bid to save his intellect. Thus, a new half-human, half-cybernetic intelligence is born and soon begins to grow when it enters the internet. The cast here, as you'd expect, are all solid, but they're not exactly exceptional. Funnily enough, despite being top billed, Depp is not really the main focus of the film, but rather his wife, played by Hall. She carries most of the baggage and does so rather well, sharing her husband's enthusiasm, but also being stuck in a sort of perpetual state of grief and doubt once he dies and is uploaded. Depp himself is good, and this is one of his most restrained performances in many years, but there's not really much to comment on. He starts out as an amiable guy and then becomes sort of neutral and cold when he's uploaded. It works, but it's kind of predictable and not terribly layered. As for the supporting players, they are all good, but don't get a huge amount to work with. The most substantial of the bunch is poor Bettany as the caster's closest friend, who is the first to voice doubts about Will's transcendence and eventually aids the fight to stop him, and he works well, blending his doubts and worries with his genuine affection for the couple. As for Freeman and Murphy, as I mentioned beforehand, they are both good, but they don't get a lot to do, with Freeman playing once again a very mentorish kind of role, while Cillian plays a more conventional FBI agent, trying to investigate what exactly is going on with Rift and ultimately ends up on the hunt for Will. On a visual level, the film is, as you'd expect from being directed by veteran cinematographer Wally Pfister, slick and polished. From rainy cities to sterile labs and even sun-baked deserts, Pfister covers a broad selection of location and imagery, and all shot on traditional film stock, which gives the footage a certain flowing smoothness that is a little hard to describe unless you're really into filmmaking, but it fits the clash of different worlds present in the story rather nicely. And the score by angly regular Michael Dana is surprisingly effective. I'm not usually a fan of Dana's work, as I find his music to blend too much into the background and not have enough of an identity or memorability of its own to stand out. But here, he supplies us with a mixture of your standard sci-fi synth with dashes of a choral element, as well as more melodic strings and tinny percussion. It fits the theme of crossing evolutionary paths and creates a rather haunting atmosphere at times. However, it can also be rather touching, especially towards the end with its use of strings as the caster's dream falls apart. And with all that, we now come to the script, written by newcomer Jack Paglen. And so comes the time for me to fully dissect this film. And this is going to be a little tricky, as it kind of has me at odds. On the one hand, its faults are shockingly glaring given the talent involved. The main problem, and sort of opposite from my critical peers' take on this whole thing, is the really clunky opening and corner cutting during it. Within the first 20 or so minutes, the movie throws a lot of information at the audience, and as a byproduct doesn't allow time for proper introductions and a strong emotional link to the characters. Within this time, we are introduced to our cast, Will's vision, the rift, their plans, his murder, his wife's grief, and then his uploading, along with the usual "this isn't right" bits. Compressing so much information in such a short span of time not only means you don't really get to know or get comfortable with these people, but also means the ideas the film presents at first have no time to sink in or really be explored, or how the world of the film perceives and or reacts to them. A lot of good sci-fi is based on world building and context, and Transcendence unbelievably comes out the gate stumbling in this field. What's more, Pfister's prior work with Nolan mainly shows in the pacing, and throughout the first half it's at odds with the story. We have the kind of quick, thriller-like pacing from Inception, but it's set towards more of a high-concept science fiction drama. It's like trying to put a Ferrari engine in a Volkswagen Beetle. This, coupled with the bits of corner cutting where the big moral issues with the upload and its consequences are relegated to maybe a few lines and then next scene, is what I imagine irked many of my professional peers and led to this film's dismal reception. The film seems in such a rush at first that the interesting questions raised by this very event, as well as the technology and research behind it, are given insufficient time to breathe, and considering this is a film all about these very things, this is a problem, and one that leaves me really scratching my head. But then, on the other hand, however, and allow me to play devil's advocate here, no one can deny Transcendence is ambitious, with its many huge ideas and questions starting to take root and blossom in the second half. From here, it becomes the Transcendence film I wanted to see, where we start seeing the effects and the consequences of the casters' choices, and we see it from different perspectives and viewpoints. The characters start coming into their own here too, and those viewpoints are allowed to contrast and let you, the audience, decide on who you agree with. The casters are making huge advancements in science and helping the environment, but Will is also using them to help propagate and expand his influence and control. The Rift and Will's old friends are concerned about this, and also how much of Will and his morality is left inside that computer, but there's also an element of paranoia and fear of the future mixed in with them, a sort of comment on our own day-to-day fears of change and of the brave new world always lurking around the corner. A lot of these are very important questions and very socially relevant, especially given the kind of world that we live in, where technology is always advancing at an ever faster rate, and it's not hard to see why a lot of these people were attracted to this project. All this builds to a rather sizable climax, both emotionally and viscerally, that packs a meaty punch and puts all of our characters in rather uncomfortable positions as to how far they'll go to achieve their goals, and how our own arrogance can sometimes trump our intentions and better reason. It's heady stuff, and it gripped me entirely. Despite its shortcomings, Transcendence was able to win me around thanks to its sheer scope, even if the road there was filled with pitfalls and drastic turns. Paglan's script, as far as I've heard, was tighter and more direct in earlier drafts, and had Pfister and his team stuck to that, the film, I have no doubt in saying, would have probably been the next great science fiction film of our time, to very much rival the likes of Inception and Matrix. However, the inexperience and the clunk does drag it down from true greatness to simply being fairly good, I'd say. Regardless, I can't agree with the complaints that it's boring or tedious. And unlike some other quote-unquote ideas films in the past that I've reviewed, like the absolutely dreadful Birth, this one actually does spend some time talking about its ideas. It doesn't just chuck them on the audience and just say, here, I'm so smart, I'm so important, pay attention to me. It may not always be up to scratch, but it kept presenting me with interesting concepts throughout its runtime, and I can't help but wonder if the marketing painted this too much more like an action thriller, when really it's a more deliberate, thoughtful affair. The next Inception this most certainly is not. Transcendence, to me, to go on a sort of artsy-fartsy tangent, is a beautiful film, but in that diamond in the rough kind of way. It hasn't yet been cut and shaped to its full potential, but that gleam of promise is enough to entice one to go further on with it. Like a stone, it can be flawed or irregular, but its sheer daring and vision was satisfying enough for me. Now, whether or not it will work for you is tough for me to say. I imagine I probably went into this with a lot more patience than a lot of other people did, and frankly, judging by the reviews, it very much seems to be like that. And while, again, I don't think the film is what it could have been completely, I think it does enough right to warrant a cautious recommendation. In closing, I award Transcendence a low silver star. It itself may not transcend beyond its problems, but it certainly aims high, and ambition cannot be faulted in an age often dominated by safe, accountant greenlit productions. It's not the next great sci-fi epic, and it is a shame that it's not, but if you got a kick out of more low-key, drama-oriented sci-fi like, say, Her or The Final Cut, and can set your expectations accordingly to that more conceptual over visceral and immediate mentality, Transcendence may just have enough to win you over.